to be discussing past lives today. And I'm having interesting weather out in Seattle, thunder and lightning. So if I get bopped off, I will sign back in one way or another. So thank you again for being here. And I'm a past life adventure guide. I help people release energy that no longer serves them, including depression and anxiety, PTSD, chronic pain, as well as stuck creativity and fears around being able to move into those next big steps. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com. So I'm going to turn it over to Gregg, and he's going to do his introduction, and we'll just go from there.
Hi, I'm Gregg Kirk. I am an energy healer who's been doing an altered form of Reiki since 1997. The Reiki has moved into what I call energy healing. So I use tuning forks for in-person sessions. I do a bit of past life regression. Basically, I do a guided session that is custom to whatever the patient needs, and it incorporates the information that comes from that person's guides. So past life regressions kind of spontaneously happen with what I do, and Wendy and I have decided we're going to do a protection ritual for every broadcast that we do here. So this is something I use in my own in-person sessions as well as remote sessions. So I'm just going to invoke Archangel Michael, Raphael, Saint Germain, all the guides, guardian angels, healing entities, and non-physical beings who have our best interest in mind to allow us to have healing, protection, and guidance during the session. We'd like to establish that all of us here on this session are sovereign beings practicing free will, and we do not give permission for anything or anyone to enter our fields or our bodies without our consent, and we do not allow the mingling of our energies during this session. Okay, back to you, Wendy.
Okay, well, thanks, Gregg. Well, let's just jump in. And Gregg, are you able to mute microphones for everyone but you and I? Is that possible, just since we're recording, to keep the background noise a little bit lower?
Yes, doing that.
Okay,
right.
Wonderful. You do that, and I will just admit other people that are coming to the waiting room here. All right, well, welcome, and we will just continue on. So let's start talking about past lives. I first became introduced to the concept via Dr. Michael Newton's Journey of Souls back in 2010. And that was just such an awakening for me, because the content in that book, in combination with meeting the soulmate that had the contract to wake me up spiritually, just really changed everything in my world. And within a few years, as I had my own first couple of past life regression sessions as the client, I just got such tremendous healing and insights, and just everything changed so much in my life that I trained as a past life regressionist myself with Dr. Brian Weiss, among others. And I'd just like to address why past lives, because a lot of people will bring up, well, shouldn't I really focus on now? And isn't this maybe like cheating to know what my past lives are? And what I just like to say is there's so much energy from past lives that can be impacting us now and stopping us from leading that happy, healthy life that we want to lead now. So I don't see it as cheating. I see it as energy management, to be stepping to the plate and taking care of what we need to take care of by really working with that energy when it does present for us. I mean, certainly if everything's going wonderfully in your life in all different areas, it just, may not be something that you need to look at. And that's wonderful too. But that's pretty rare, because most people are impacted by their past life energy, because we've lived hundreds, if not thousands of lives. And my belief is we can choose, it's free will based. We choose when and where we incarnate, and to what parents, and just make a lot of choices. And that can be very surprising to people, because then that'll bring up, well, why did I choose such a rough circumstance or such a challenging circumstance? We can talk more about that. We can also choose lives off planet. We can choose lives in other life forms. And Gregg and I have both had some of those neat sessions with clients where suddenly the health issues presenting because of another life form. And Gregg, I don't want to steal your story. I want you to tell that story because you had a wonderful healing story about that with a client recently. So those are just some of my preliminary thoughts. And Gregg, do you want to bounce off that and add to that? And if we've got any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. Let me turn my chat on here.
Yeah,
And at the bottom of your screen, if you hover over your screen, if you're new to Zoom, there's a chat button and you can type your message in there, which everyone will then see.
and I believe we're also projecting right now on Facebook. So I believe you also have that ability on Facebook to.
Yes, and I will take a look there in Facebook and see if there's any comments. Not yet, so we'll just keep on going.
I'm not sure we're projecting on Facebook right now.
Okay, well then let me keep chatting while Gregg works on the tech piece there. I've had the good fortune to find a really high number of my past lives, and it's because it correlates to my life purpose. I mean, some people only need to find 1, 2, 3, a half dozen, because those are the ones that are either presenting with energy that you need to release, or there's some lessons to finish up, or there can be forgotten abilities. There can be wonderful abilities. There's many artists who've been artists in multiple lifetimes. There's many writers. There's many healers. There's just so many wonderful skills. So when you're seeing those child prodigies, for instance, that always kind of gets my brain going, oh my goodness, could this be a past life that they're really just bringing those skills forward again? So Gregg, do you want to continue to troubleshoot there a bit? It looks like.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're finally live now. All right.
Okay.
I'll actually
Yeah, meeting is now streaming live in Facebook. There we go. All right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So Wendy and I actually met because I had the desire for a past life regression session with her. I was in the middle of finishing up my book, and I just had this intuitive feeling that there was another chapter or two that I needed to write to help me kind of make sense of all the experiences I had going through Lyme disease, my spiritual awakening, etc. I had this just nagging feeling I had some past lives I needed to know about. And Wendy helped me. We did a session, I think it was 5 lives came out spontaneously, and that was really rewarding. And it really calmed me down about, this kind of itch that needed scratching, just this unconscious or subconscious, irritation. I needed to find these things out to help me make more sense of what was going on in my life. Not long after, I started having patients request past life sessions in my remote sessions, and I told them I didn't do that until one patient, it was almost a similar situation. She said, "Can we try it?" And I said, all my sessions are working directly with guides. So we just put it out as an intention with the guides, and she had 5 lives come through as well, 4 or 5, I don't remember. They happen in a different way with the sessions I do. They're very, they just come up. So the way I work is I work down the person's energy body from the crown chakra to, down through more or less the chakra areas. And they tend to come up right around the head, sometimes even before I get to touch the energy body. They come up, I'd say 90% of the time they come up because there's a trauma that's been experienced in a past life that's related to a physical ailment the person is presenting with in this lifetime. That is, far and away the most expected and the most frequent reason a past life comes up. And I'll go into a quick story about one of the more amazing ones. However, I'll say that recently some lives have been coming through that have been thankfully not traumas, but really good experiences that people have had in past lives, and the expertise, the knowledge, the wisdom, even just the good feelings the person experienced in that past life are being brought to the consciousness level in this life, so the person can draw from that as well. So it's not always about, kind of righting a wrong, or not righting a wrong, but fixing an ailment. It's also about bringing positivity to the person's life. So just real quick, a quick story about one of the more dramatic sessions I had. So it was a person who came to me who had Lyme disease. She came to me for in-person sessions, and she was very strong Catholic, had strong Catholic beliefs. And I'm just saying that because I want you to know her belief system, because this this blew it up kind of, but she went with it. She also had a rotator cuff problem. So that was kind of the ancillary problem we were addressing. So we were applying tuning forks around her shoulder, and we were doing overall sessions. She had 2 very successful in-person sessions. She had a measurable increase in mobility. Her symptoms went down, but I would say nothing dramatic. It was, maybe 10, 15, 20%. Then one day she couldn't make it in person. So I said, these remote sessions that we do over the phone can be sometimes just as powerful, if not more. So we did the session. We went into it, and immediately I started to see, as I started working around her head, I started to see her wearing a powdered wig. So I was immediately kind of to zoom in on the time frame. It was in Paris, or not Paris, but France, around the time when people were wearing powdered wigs in the 1700s. I got this feeling like she was a prostitute of some kind. And this was one of those situations where the information came in, and I held on to it. I didn't want to tell her. First of all, she was fairly religious and believed in Catholicism pretty strongly. I didn't want to say, okay, you were a prostitute, and upset her, So we waited until it came through more. And what I got was she was what's called a courtesan, So it's, somebody who is basically, here's what happened. And this is how I knew the information didn't come from my brain, because actually I had to look this up afterwards to see that this was actually the way society worked back in those times. She was married to a rich man. They had some children. When her husband died, there was some problem with the will where the money didn't go to her, or he had debts. I don't know what the deal was, but she was left out in the street literally with her children. She still had friends who were in high society. So what she began doing was giving sexual favors to men who had a lot of money to keep a roof over her head and feed her children. So that's how it began. Unfortunately, this ended abruptly when one of these men pushed her down a flight of stairs and broke her shoulder. So when we started talking about this, her shoulder started heating up. She was telling me that, but so I said, well, that's a good thing. Go with it. Don't be afraid of it. But I think this injury you experienced, several hundred years ago is related to your shoulder problem now. So anyway, the session ended. It seemed very successful, but nothing unusual. Nothing out of the ordinary. if you consider a past life coming up not unusual. I saw her then the next week for an in-person session. And when she came in, the owner of the spa where I was doing my practice, she sat down with her instantly to start recording a testimony video, because she looked so different. She was glowing. She had a spring in her step. As when she came in before, she was depressed. She had all these Lyme symptoms. She gave me an entire stack of her symptoms and tests that she had had. She came in bouncing off the walls, practically singing and kicking her heels. So we sat down and said, what's going on? She said, well, you're never going to believe this, but a few days after our session, I went into the doctor to get a CAT scan done on my shoulder to get it measured for surgery. And the doctor came in and said, we can't do surgery because you don't have a wound there anymore. There's no more tear.
Wow.
Completely healed. He said, of course he was curious, like, what did you do? And I don't remember what she told him, but then, so we filmed this of her doing the testimony, and she leans over to me and says, "By the way, Gregg, I don't have Lyme disease anymore. All my symptoms went away." And that was actually the part where that pushed my belief system, because it's very hard to get rid of Lyme disease and to address it. And for this to happen in a spontaneous way is powerful, amazing. And it shows the strength of how these past life sessions can release this trapped energy that has been caused by traumas from hundreds of years or even thousands of years ago. So.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. What a tremendous illustration. And that brings up the concept of lifetime of origin. And that's often what happens in the past life regression sessions that I'm doing with people. And it might not be a physical issue. It can be an emotional issue too. It can be someone who's just really struggling with a fear of authority, here and now in their current life, and they can just really have issues, even though they're, have no reason to, it's just not making sense. And so they can even get upset when they see something in the mail that's from the IRS, or even like from their bank or from the Department of Licensing, their new driver's license. The fear of authority can be that deep. Because of past issues that they've had, where they've been imprisoned or just had various things come up. So being able to release that from our energy body, it's just a really big deal. So let's just switch gears for a moment, because a lot of people say, well, how do I find my past life? How do I know if this really is a past life? How do I know what's going on? So let's talk through some of the ways that past lives can present. So dreams are certainly a way that our subconscious can be trying to get our attention, our soul just trying to get our attention. So if you have a particularly vivid dream, a dream that turns lucid, where you're able to control what's going on, you're aware that you're dreaming, a dream that like wakes you up so that you remember it, or a dream that recurs over months or even years. And if things in that dream look like another time and place, that's interesting. So that may very well be past life energy. And the way that you can get more information about that is just ask again before you fall asleep. Because if it's presenting in a dream, just ask your higher self and guides, just explain this to me. I obviously keep having this recurrent dream or this vivid dream, and just ask before you fall asleep and have a notepad there next to the bed, because you may wake up in the middle of the night and it can be really fleeting, to try and grasp onto those wisps of memory. So that's one way. People can certainly, oh, here comes my cat Midnight. You may see a tail or a head go by here. He wants to help. So people can also have past life dreams come up, or past life memories come up spontaneously. It might be via meditation. It might be because you do something or meet someone or go to a place where just deja vu is just really triggered for you, and you're like, oh my gosh, why is this so familiar? You might go somewhere where you've never been, another city, and yet you're suddenly able to navigate. And you just know that there's like this special little bookstore around the corner, or this special little coffee shop around the corner, and can just navigate without a map. So that can all be very interesting. Or you meet a person and there's this instant feeling of, I've known this person forever. And you just, you trust them. You're just so excited. You can't wait to like continue the conversation. And then your left brain, your ego might kick in and go, what's going on? I've only known them for 30 seconds. But that's not really true, because you're recognizing someone that you've known before, perhaps even soul family or a soulmate. It can happen the other way too. There can be just this instant, strong dislike where you feel yourself like even physically like pulling back, wanting to like minimize the interaction. It's kind of that I'll call it stranger danger feeling. And pay attention to your intuition. If the hair on the back of your neck or on your arms is standing up, yeah, take a step back, shield yourself, just take care of yourself. And you're not forced to be in interaction with anyone. So just honor your intuition and your energy, because there may be some difficult past life energy to release with that person that you may be better suited to doing at home, at a distance. And you can just meditate and ask your guides, okay, what was up with that? Because I had such a strong, reaction to that person. So any comments on that, Gregg, or any comments from listeners? Again, you're welcome to use the chat if you just joined us, and just hover over the bottom of the Zoom, and you can put a chat in, or on Facebook. And I'll check the Facebook while Gregg responds.
Okay. Yeah. Also, knowledge or skills that you have not been taught in this lifetime that just suddenly you're almost at mastery level. That's something I notice myself. I think it happens with healers quite a bit. So where you may get some training going, and then all of a sudden you start doing a lot of other things that you've never been trained to do. Some of that can be your guides or the client's guides coming in and helping you, but a lot of it can be from your past life as a healer or a magician, or some life where you did more magical things. But that's definitely for sure. I don't see the question here, but I would, if I were watching this show, I would have the question. So, how do you know if you should seek out, your past life? And I'll just, again, reiterate something. For me, it was, I just had this unconscious feeling like around certain topics, so for me, it was, I would read a certain topic. A lot of it had to do with the part of Jesus's life that is not mentioned in the Bible. So, that first 30, from birth to about 30, there's a blind spot in the Bible and in the traditional holy writings about Christ. And I was fascinated by that. And then I just started to question myself, why am I so fascinated with this? Why did, my energy was different around it. It wasn't like a normal curiosity. So it finally, that was what drove me to look for past lives. I just had this feeling I had been alive during the time of Christ. Everything I read about the community that he grew up in, called the Essenes, made me feel good. I just can't explain it. Everything I read about the Essenes, I thought, these people were cool. I could definitely see myself hanging out with them. And then, well, I later found out I did. But anyway, so that, if you kind of have these little bits of deja vu, but also topics that you're reading about that
Absolutely,
that are just suddenly like way more interesting than you would have expected. That's a good reason to start investigating about you.
That is a great indicator, just being like really drawn to a certain time period or a place, or to a skill, as you said. Like my youngest daughter was just a natural with archery. She wanted a bow and arrow. So we bought her a bow and arrow and the haystack and, the whole deal, to be able to do that on her dad's property, where there's lots of land. Be able to fire those arrows off. But just interesting things. And as you said, those healer abilities can come up. And part of why I chose to train for Reiki and became a Reiki master was, once I learned how to ground and clear my energy each morning, and I was doing that before heading out for the day, I found I just wanted to help certain people. And I started choosing 3 people a day, where I would just, silently, higher self to higher self, ask if I could send them healing, because I knew it was someone that mentioned they were having problems with whatever. And I would just close my eyes and put my hands up, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was sending distance Reiki. And then when I went ahead and took the training, it was funny because that was the actual last module, was you get trained for sending Reiki via distance. You know, if you're going to choose to do that. And it was interesting because that's what got me started. So it just came back full cycle, and it was just more powerful and more enjoyable and easier to do once I did get the training. So, but you know, it came back to me very quickly and naturally.
Right.
So, and Midnight, my 19-year-old kitty, would just like to mention, we can have past lives with animals. So we can have animal companions that either come to us multiple times in this one lifetime, because I believe my cat has been with me most of my life. My parents had a boxer dog when I was born, and Midnight, I believe that same soul was that dog. And then I have adopted 3 different black cats in my life, starting with when I was in 4th grade. My mom got me a kitty, and Midnight again. You know, just four different times in this lifetime. So I feel really honored by that, because he's such a great companion. He's a healing cat. He participates in almost every session I do. And see, the moment I acknowledge him, he lays down and he's calm. But until he like wants to be acknowledged and to talk about the animals for a moment because of the past lives that we can share with them. And he's been in multiple past lives with me too. Often as a very large black cat, jaguar, black panther, etc., or a very large guard dog. So he's found this 12-pound body a little bit off-putting, and finds it you know, a little bit too compact for him at times. So Gregg, I don't know if you've had any experiences like that with animals or with people, that you just have recognized that you've had a lot of past lives with.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I had a Maine Coon cat who passed several years ago, and the energy of my dog, Dusty, who is actually roughly about the same size. He's a toy Australian Shepherd, so he's only about 30 pounds, not quite, very similar energy. And then I just realized one day, I'm like, wow, I think you're Kookaburra. That was the name of my cat. So anyway, I want to mention one thing that sometimes past lives come through. You lightly touched on it, but it's not always human lives, and it's not always lives here on Earth. So every now and then, I will start to see lives I don't understand. It looks like a place that's not Earth. The beings around them are clearly not human, and you know, they look like alien. Sometimes aliens I know about, you know, like insectoid or reptilian or whatever, but sometimes I don't even know what they are. The other thing that is pretty amazing that you know, people have had, you kind of go, apparently this is how it works. I'm not an authority on this, but this is the way it seems, is that past lives do work in a progression where you start off as literally as just a rock or a crystal or a plant, and then you move up the chain to animals and humans. I've heard that. It doesn't always happen that way, because you can be a walk-in and just instantly start as a human. But we talked about it in our last a broadcast, where one patient I was had done work on had a past life as a crystal. She actually found the crystal, a piece of herself, and brought it to the session, which was astounding.
Oh my goodness, that's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, maybe I thought we talked about that, but anyway, no, I'm thinking of another broadcast for another topic. But basically, we talked about this. The woman held up the crystal and said, "This is, here it is." But just real quick about this, she came in and asked if it would be okay to bring crystals to the in-person sessions. I said, absolutely. So she set it near her on the table, and I started doing the session, and her guides basically said, "That's her. That crystal is a piece of her."
Wow.
So there's a whole story about how that happened too, because she actually got it from a crystal store that had all these amazing crystals. It was out in the middle of nowhere. She went there 3 times, and then when she started telling other people about it, the last time she went, the store was not there. like not even it
Wow.
disappeared. So that was amazing too. But I also, not long after that, had a session with a man who had really bad psoriasis. And I got that he was a tree in a past life. And then his guides came in and said, this is the reason he has psoriasis. He enjoyed his life as a tree so much that when he goes through stress now, he tries to grow bark on his skin, which is the psoriasis. And the guide said that this happens to a lot of patients who have psoriasis. They're reliving the past life as a tree, and it's almost like a defense mechanism, which that was astounding information for me to hear. So that was kind of a twist on the here's your past life, and they didn't have a trauma. They enjoyed it so much they were trying to recreate it in a unfortunately unhealthy way.
Right, absolutely. Our bodies are so wise. I use Louise Hay's Heal Your Body book quite often in client sessions because, for instance, going back to your client with shoulder pain, in that case, you found the lifetime of origin, but that can be about, or do you feel like you're shouldering too much responsibility? Do you feel overwhelmed? Is there just too much going on that you need to let go of and release? Or someone with neck pain. Neck pain's another one that's really common, and many past life reasons for neck pain. But you can just literally ask yourself, what do I feel? What or who do I feel like is like a pain in my neck? And just kind of dialogue with it, and figure out what's going on there. So that just brings up a lot of good things about just tuning into our bodies, because our bodies are so wise and can just be, or stomach. Like I was having a lot of stomach pain, digestion issues, and elimination issues. So Gregg and I did a session with me as the client. And what I had done as a precursor to that was someone had asked me in a healing session, what can't you stomach? And I just burst into tears. Oh, now you're getting the cat's tail. That must look very strange.
It looks cool.
It's Midnight's tail.
Looks like your tail.
So when the woman asked me, what can't you stomach? And I just burst into tears, that just gave me the big release of, oh, here's what's going on. And then Gregg, you had found a lifetime where I had been kidnapped and, yanked out of a stagecoach and like beat up and kicked in the stomach and, different things. So it was like releasing that energy. And again, it's not all drama and trauma. These are good, healthy releases. They can be quick. They can make incredible differences in your life. And I just like to share a happy, fun one, because I had the privilege of finding what I consider my just favorite past life. Interestingly, it came up through a Reiki session. I was the client, and I went to have a Reiki life force energy healing session with a gentleman who also happens to be a psychic medium. So it's kind of neat because you're both getting that Reiki energy, and sometimes he's also doing a psychic reading. So I had this wonderful Reiki session with him for an hour, and at the end of it, he says, "Okay, go ahead, take your time, just sit up, kind of reorient back into your body and sit on the edge of the treatment table, the massage table." So I did, and then we were just chatting, and then he looked at me. And he said, "Oh my goodness, there's such a strong past life presenting. Is it okay if I share that with you?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely," because I could feel it too. And I was really new to this. I was like barely learning how to hear my guides. This was early 2013 when this happened. But what he said was, "I see you on a pirate ship, and it's unusually large, very sturdy, and it's in this beautiful place. It's in the water. I see mountains." And so he was telling me things about it, and I immediately could see one of the main players I was in that past life with. And my question to him was, I said, "Did I master my life lesson?" Because I believe my life lesson that lifetime as a female pirate, and that's interesting right there, female pirate. I said, "Did I hold on to my power? Did I use my power the way I was meant to in that lifetime, particularly knowing who I was married to. And he looked at me and he said, yes, and I can confirm, you know who it was. We both knew the individual. It's the soulmate who woke me up and is in my first two books. And he confirmed, he said, yes, you did hold on to your power. I said, okay, or can you tell me anything more about it? And he kind of blushed and he said, no, because I can't use that language around a lady. Which I thought was so funny. I said, well, who's saying those things? He says, well, it's you. And I said, really? And you can't repeat? So we just left it at that because it made him uncomfortable. And he actually bought me a book because we worked together. And when I went to work on Monday, he presented me with a book and it was called Clean Pirate Jokes and Clean Pirate Language. I said, oh, isn't that an oxymoron? But just got such a kick out of that. And what was interesting too, he didn't happen to know what a fjord was. He did not know the word fjord. And I could see it was Scandinavia. I could see it was North Seas. So I started like narrating the past life. And it was really neat to vision one like that with someone together, not having expected that at all going in for my Reiki session. So I thanked him. It just was such an amazing experience. And as I was driving home, a 20-minute ride, I had to literally pull over because it just opened this doorway to that past lifetime. And my guides were trying to tell me more and more about it. I said, I can't drive like this. So I pulled over and I had a notebook with me and started just scribbling down. And they said, Google North Seas Pirates, Wikipedia. And I was like, I don't really know what that means, but obviously that sounds like something to meditate on and do when I get home. So I did. I Googled North Seas, well-known North Seas pirates was what they told me to do. And I'm going to hold this up in front of the camera. I don't know if it'll show okay, but I found this list verse, it was called, and it showed a photo, and I knew the photo was wrong. I knew that was not my husband, but the description was really, really helpful. And it gave me some information about that past life. And I do this carefully because I feel the past life information needs to be authentic to me. But since my guide said to Google for it, and I then like fact checked everything that was written, because just because it's written doesn't mean it's anything to do with you, doesn't mean it's factual to your experience. So I'm careful with it. But I was able to, kind of work with it. It gave me some clues, we'll put it that way. And then I was able to try out what was true for me. And the Wikipedia, I've never looked up a past life in Wikipedia before. But again, because it was so clear that I could hear that, and I knew my husband's name from that Googling famous North Seas pirates. So I was able to Google him. Okay, again, Midnight, you got to cooperate here because he's going to try and block the camera. So I Googled the name that I was given as my husband, and this reconstruction, now doesn't that look more like a pirate in the 1300s versus that first sketch? And it was done from a physical reconstruction of what was believed to be his skull years later. And the minute I saw that, I'm like, I burst into tears. I wasn't expecting, but as I pulled it up the Wikipedia, it's like, that's him, that's him, that's him. I just knew. And, sometimes you can be sent to a past life because there's just energy. You've got, similar energy, but this was like much more a precise hit that I really felt that truly was an actual past life that I experienced. And just, so much of it made sense. And what we were was what's called the Robin Hood pirates, or victual, meaning food. Word became victuals in some other languages, but we delivered affordable food to the people because it was wartime, governments were corrupt, and people couldn't afford food. So we were stealing food and different types of very basic provisions and delivering them to people and selling them at affordable rates. And so we're smugglers. Yes, we were pirates. Yes, there's violence involved. I make no apologies for it. It was the 1300s, early 1400s. It's just, that's what that life was. But to know that I lived the life and fulfilled my life purpose, to know that I held on to my power and used it in the appropriate ways I was meant to for that life that I planned, that was deeply, deeply meaningful to me. And it also balanced up an awful lot of lives as a monk, as a nun, you know, in silent monasteries. It balanced up. What's the opposite of those kind of lives? Hello, pirate, you know, where you're just outside so much, and you know, it's very different. So one more comment on that. This is probably too large for the screen, but I'll give it a try. Marjorie O'Meara, a lovely Facebook friend who's down in Florida and is an artist. Last summer, she tuned into my energy for my birthday because she felt called to do a drawing for me, and what she drew was me in that lifetime. So it's a big deal because there's no, you know, it's not going to be a picture of you from the 1300s. So I'll just hold that up. But this is her sketch that she did, and I realize it may be glary or hard to see, but I just was so grateful for that. It was just such a unique, amazing gift to get to have, and I just keep it above my computer stand. So it's just a really neat life how that came through. And I did recognize some other people in addition to my husband from that life. His mother now in current day was my sister. And I also met two women who helped save my life, because eventually our band of pirates was caught and public execution in the square in Hamburg. And so 73 men were beheaded. But my sister and I were not there simply because we were not aboard the ship at that time, because we were scouting in the towns, because sometimes we were aboard, but more often we were in the towns scouting and making the arrangements for where food would be arriving. And we also would use lanterns at night, and we would go out along the shore, and we would signal. So we're kind of like, you know, lighthouses, so to speak, and we'd signal to our ship when to come in. And when it was safe to come in, and we would signal when it was like, no, we don't have a good feeling in this town. It's too risky. Don't come in. So it was very, you know, quite the life. So thank you for letting me share that story.
Fascinating. I have one more point to make with a story of another spontaneous one that happened with me. But sometimes the healing isn't all about us. Sometimes it's about another person in the past life who is still hanging around, and there needs to be a resolution. So here's a case in point. I had a spontaneous past life regression happen when I was meditating. It happened over a course of 3 days. And this was actually before I met Wendy, years before. And I was it was the strangest thing how it occurred. I was in the middle of meditating. I was actually doing a healing on myself. And I saw this little girl just come in to my point of view, like she was walking onto a movie screen, and she started beckoning me. Mm-hmm. I thought, what? And so I almost ignored her, and then I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I'm going to come with her. So I came with her, and the next thing I knew, I was in a very familiar spot where I've been. It's in the middle of Paris. It's right near Notre Dame on the Seine River, on the Ile de la Cité, which is the island where Notre Dame is on, and it's the center of the city, more or less. I saw these gendarmes, like it was like I was there. They were almost bumping into me. There's a lot of activity around the banks of the river. I saw that the river was overflowing, like it looked like it had been flooded. And then, so I started my point of view started rising above this area. Like, what's going on? Did I die? They're fishing somebody out of the river. Somebody died. What's going on? I had no idea. And all of a sudden, I was in the living room around the early 1900s of a woman. She was kind of portly woman. She had, her hair was tightly braided close to her head, and she was just kind of rocking back and forth, hugging herself, like singing a lullaby or something. I burst into tears. I realized this was my mother from that lifetime, not my mother now. Some other woman, I don't even know who she is, but my heart just opened up. I started crying. And then I started getting the information that she was actually really harsh on me. She beat me, basically, which was not uncommon at all from how parents treated children, that during that lifetime. Um, and anyway, so that was day one. So I was, working a corporate job at the time. I cried my eyes out, and I'm driving to work like, what's going on with me? Remembering this life. 2 days in a row, I did the same thing. I did the meditation, and this time I did exactly what you did, Wendy, where I went on Wikipedia and said Paris flood. Like, I don't ever remember Paris flooding, and well, I think it's 1902. Yes, there was a flood. Very unusual. Not many people drowned.
Wow. That's quite the validation, isn't it? when you can
Well,
find something like that, when your guide sends you to it.
Yes, and when I saw the pictures, I burst into tears of the banks swollen all around Pont Neuf, which is one of the major bridges. It was all the way up to the arch on Pont Neuf. And I'm thinking, why am I crying my eyes out just from this, these images? And then I got that my mother actually didn't drown like it wasn't an accident. She committed suicide. She was depressed. So then I started to see who, the people in that lifetime, my brothers and sisters, my wife, and then I noticed it looked like the face of my mother now, which is crazy. So my wife in that lifetime was my mother now. But anyway, as all this went on, I started to get this information from my mother of that lifetime that she was really upset with, she felt bad how she treated me. Like, she beat me pretty badly, hurt me. And I'm in this lifetime now. I didn't have any strong feelings about it. I was like, okay, I forgive you. The moment I did that, everything changed. I watched it's like all of a sudden we were above the earth, and I watched her energy body stretch out into a coil that went down into the earth. She had been waiting 100 years for me to forgive her before she took another life.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I just have chills. That is so powerful. And forgiveness is just the lesson and the answer so often. And I had to really learn more about that myself. So that's why it's the theme of my first two books. Because I just really needed to more move into that energy and to just realize, we've chosen these lessons, we've chosen to do these dances together. And even if, you can't plan everything and life plans turn out differently, because of course the execution of it is always different, no matter how well you plan, but just being in that forgiving place and forgiving yourself is huge too. So yes, that's a wonderful example, Gregg.
Yep. So are we kind of winding down now?
I was going to say, I think we should wrap up. So thank you, everyone, and just appreciate being able to talk about my favorite topic here. Of past lives, and just being able to release that energy and bring forth those forgotten abilities. Okay, Midnight, just creating a ruckus here. He says he's done. Okay, he can learn to be quiet while he's done. And just so appreciate it. And again, I'm Wendy Rose Williams. My website is wendyrosewilliams.com. And you'll see my books there too. And on a final note, anyone who really enjoys first-person accounts of past lives, if this has piqued your interest, because they can be so interesting to read about. I have just a couple of my favorites here, one of which is a Portrait of a Past Life Skeptic by Police Captain Robert Snow. And, of all the people to not believe in past lives, a police captain would be a great one. And he set out to disprove reincarnation and instead ended up proving his past life before the days of the internet. So he went to a lot of effort. And there's also The Boy Who Knew Too Much by Kathy Bird. That's a more recent one, and it's about her son who is a baseball prodigy, and that's those abilities from previous lives, and just really believing that he was Lou Gehrig in a past life, and looking at Lou having died fairly young and pretty traumatic way from ALS, from Lou Gehrig, became named Lou Gehrig disease. They had a lot of energy between them because they came back as mother and son again. So I think that's a really interesting one. And then the final one, a first-person account, is Soul Survivor, which was written by Bruce and Andrea Leninger regarding their son James. And he had memories of being a World War II pilot that were very profound as a preschooler, and just he kept those memories, and now is in his 20s and no longer has them because that energy's been resolved. But that's a really powerful story too, because they were able to actually go and meet some of the men that he had served with. So just think how mind-blowing that is if you can actually meet some of the people from your previous life. So again, thank you. Anything you'd like to wrap up with, Gregg?
Yeah, I can be reached through my website at greggkirk.com. So it's GREGGKIRK.com. Yeah, and also feel free to reach out to both Wendy and me if you have that itch, like I talked about. You feel some reason to investigate your past lives. We can definitely help you out. And please let us know how. We tried Zoom this time, and I think we had a little bit of technical difficulties getting it going. I'm seeing some comments that we lost sound through Facebook. So give us some feedback on that. We used something else. We used a different technology with our first session. It seemed to go pretty smoothly, but it didn't record it in a way that we could share it very easily with you. Zoom has more features, but if it's not coming across to you very well, we want to know about it. So please give us feedback on that. Also give us feedback on future topics you'd like to have us discuss. And obviously, we'd love to hear from you. So please start giving us some feedback while we're actually in the middle of broadcasting, because we can see your comments. So we appreciate it. Thank you all. Blessings. Namaste. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, and do check out Gregg's book on Amazon, The Gratitude Curve, because it's a marvelous book. And Gregg, I think you spent 10 years writing it. I mean, it was just a tremendous big deal to release all that energy. And it has a chapter in it where Gregg mentioned we did a past life regression together. He's got the chapter in there of what came up for him. So it's just a neat tie-in and some work that we did together. So again, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And this program will be on our website, which is wakingupspiritually.com. And on there you can see the last broadcast, which was about spirit guides. And after we've had a bit of time, we'll put this one on there too. So if things were glitchy on Facebook or glitchy with Zoom or whatever, don't worry, because if we've got a clear recording, assuming we do, it'll be on there. So thank you again.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye now.